Let's jump right in. If you've been anywhere near a screen or stepped foot in a shopping center lately, you've definitely seen the absolute frenzy around these viral collectibles. I mean, we're talking about the sheer chaotic irony of people literally trampling each other for brightly colored Stanley Cups or getting into mad scrambles over rare Labubu dolls. These things have completely taken over our feeds, right? But in today's explainer, we're going to dig into what's actually lurking beneath that shiny, highly coveted surface.
So I want to challenge you for a second to look past all that social media hype. We really need to talk about the real-world dangers that might literally be sitting in your kitchen cabinets or on your display shelves right now. Because, yeah, it's super easy to get swept up in a trend, but we have to ask, are your viral collectibles actually safe for you and, well, for the planet?
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the viral Tumbler craze, the hidden risks of lead exposure, the real cost of cup hoarding, blind boxes and gamification, plastic waste and overconsumption, and finally, we'll wrap up with the de-influencing solution.
Okay, Section 1, the viral tumbler craze. Let's take a look at how a simple, insulated steel cup somehow became the ultimate status symbol.
We are currently witnessing a truly fascinating and honestly kind of ridiculous paradox. These tumblers were inherently designed to replace single-use plastic water bottles, which is a great thing, but instead, this whole trend has triggered massive wasteful hoarding. We've seen literal stampedes at Target stores just for limited edition Valentine's Day collections. You go online and TikTokers are proudly showing off collections of up to 50 tumblers, just so they can match their cups to their daily outfits. But as one consumer rightly pointed out, you can only physically carry one of these cups at a time. This intense push to collect them is driving a completely new, massive wave of overconsumption.
Moving to Section 2, hidden risks, specifically lead exposure. So beyond just taking up a ton of space in your kitchen, we really need to focus on a very real, physical risk associated with these heavy metal cups. Let's break down the actual anatomy of a potential hazard hiding right inside these cups. A lot of the most popular insulated tumblers use an industry-standard manufacturing process that actually features a concealed lead pellet. Right, lead. This pellet is located right at the base of the cup, and it's used to seal the vacuum insulation. That's the part that keeps your water nice and cold. Now, normally, it is completely covered by a circular stainless steel barrier, and manufacturers assure us that, hey, with regular use, it's perfectly safe. But the risk arises if the cup experiences a structural failure. Say you drop it or bang it up in just the wrong way, and that bottom cover pops off. Suddenly, that toxic lead is completely exposed. And here's why this is an absolutely crucial point. According to Ronnie Levin, an instructor at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, lead is an all-systems toxin. There literally isn't a single system in your body, from your nervous system to your immune system to your reproductive system, that isn't harmed by it. Now, experts like toxicologist Kimberly Garrett do point out that if the structural integrity of the cup holds up, you aren't at risk. But let's think about reality here for a second. You're hauling around a heavy metal water bottle everywhere you go, you're inevitably going to drop it. Levin points out that kids are especially vulnerable in this scenario. If the bottom of a broken cup is exposed, a kid touches the surface, puts their fingers in their mouth, contamination can happen just like that. The key takeaway here is simple but serious. A damaged cup is a dangerous cup.
All right, Section 3, the cost of cup hoarding. So the fiscal risks are definitely real, but the environmental footprint left behind by producing mountains of these cups, it is staggering.
Let's just walk through the life cycle of one of these steel cups. It's a completely linear process. First, to even make the cup, you have to mine iron ore, which actively destroys wildlife habitats. Then comes the wildly energy-intensive process of smelting that ore into steel. Throw in the massive CO2 emissions generated by shipping these really heavy items all over the globe, plus all the packaging used to protect them in transit. And finally, when people inevitably get bored of the trend, where do they go? Mostly they end up dumped as permanent landfill waste. We are definitely not operating in a sustainable circular economy here. We're just mass-producing heavy metal that's eventually going to just sit in the dirt. This brings us to a really thought-provoking perspective from author Aja Barber. She asks, who gets to enjoy things on a burning planet where consumerism is definitely a problem? Frame it this way. Hoarding $45 water cups is a hallmark of extreme privilege. It completely turns a blind eye to the global environmental consequences, like resource depletion and climate change, that disproportionately affect people in the global south. And statistically, those are the exact same people consuming the least. Section 4, blind boxes and gamification. Let's pivot slightly to a parallel viral phenomenon sweeping through stores that is just as intense as the Tumbler craze, and arguably a whole lot more chaotic.
I want to introduce you to a concept called gamification. Basically, this is the integration of gambling mechanics into non-gambling environments. Think about the massive, crazy trend of collectible blind boxes or those Labubu dolls. You buy a sealed box, and you have absolutely zero idea which exact toy is inside until you rip it open. The thrill of the chase, that desperate hope of pulling a rare figure that'll fetch a high value on the secondary market, it's psychologically and structurally akin to gambling. These toys prey entirely on our hardwired desire for randomized, unpredictable rewards. And you'll see this phenomenon literally everywhere. Physical storefronts in Western countries are packed floor to ceiling with these randomized boxes. They're clearly labeled not a toy, yet they are incredibly appealing to much younger demographics. At the same time, major e-commerce platforms like eBay are just flooded with privately packaged mystery boxes. The crazy thing here is, despite acting as unregulated gambling and holding real-world monetary value, these items operate almost entirely without regulation in most of the world.
But there is some pushback happening. Over in Shanghai, regulators have started fighting back. They've implemented consumer protection guidelines specifically targeting blind boxes to minimize the psychological harm and financial ruin they can cause. They actually banned sales to kids under 8. They instituted price caps, keeping boxes under about $31. They demand clear, mandatory probability disclosures so you actually know what your odds are. And fascinatingly, they recommend pity timers, which is a rule stating that if you buy a certain number of boxes, you are finally guaranteed to get that rare reward. It essentially caps how much money a consumer can lose while endlessly chasing a trend. Section 5, Plastic Waste and Overconsumption. Let's connect that psychological manipulation right back to the physical toll this all takes on our planet. Academic research from Indiana University highlights a pretty harsh reality. The toy industry, it is the most plastic-intensive industry in the entire world. For every $1 million in revenue, 40 tons of plastic is used. These plastic toys, which blind boxes are almost entirely made of, require fossil fuels to produce. And worse, they release toxic emissions when they inevitably decompose or are thrown into an incinerator. The data paints a stark picture, especially when you compare simple, traditional toys to complex plastic ones. So the global warming potential of a simple stuffed dog without a battery, it sits at 0.8. You add a battery, and it jumps to 1.3. But a heavy plastic toy, like a marble run, skyrockets to 1.8. That's more than double the emissions of this simple stuffed toy. The raw materials we use matter immensely. And here is the sad truth of our current throwaway society. 80% of all toys end up in landfills or incinerators. This is the exact definition of a linear economy. Make it, use it, landfill it. What we desperately need is a massive shift toward a circular economy, where items are made, used, and then actually repaired or recycled. Because whether it's a giant stainless steel tumbler or a tiny plastic figurine from a blind box, our relentless overconsumption is just breaking the system. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. There is an antidote to this social media-driven frenzy. Section 6, the de-influencing solution. Enter the concept of de-influencing. This is a growing social media movement where online creators are actively using their platforms to fight the hoarding trend. Instead of telling you what you absolutely have to buy to be cool, they are telling you exactly what not to buy. They're pointing out products that are overhyped, unnecessary, or just straight up not worth your hard-earned money. It's a really refreshing, direct pushback against the endless cycle of PR packages and massive product hauls. So what can you actually do about all this? Here are a few actionable, positive steps to help break the cycle. First, just unfollow creators who constantly push you to buy things you don't need. Free up your feed. Second, use the reusable items you already own. Honestly, one great insulated cup is really all you need for your water. Third, try to support brands that use circular designs. For example, IKEA has a furniture buyback program that actually encourages repairing and reusing. And finally, opt for secondhand toys or non-plastic goods whenever you can. It just takes a little bit of thoughtfulness and mindfulness to step away from the hype. Which leaves us with this final question. We've talked about the hidden lead risks of insulated cups, the environmental devastation of hoarding, and the psychological traps of blind boxes. So the next time a viral trend hits your feed, promising you status, joy, or some rare collectible, will you buy into the cycle of overconsumption, or will you choose to opt out? Because true community and joy are rarely found inside a trendy water bottle or a plastic mystery box. Just something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.